so I can enjoy it. And that's what we focus on at Silk Roads. So today, wanted to start off by saying you're in the right place if you make a tangible product for humans to enjoy, right? Super important. And then if you have no clue what supply chain is, but you know, if you just sat down and you learn some more, that you could really be probably making some nice extra cash. The agenda, by the way, if you haven't noticed yet, we love GIFs over here. I think they're a perfect way to express ourselves and have fun. And it's a heavy topic, but we want to make sure you're having fun and understand, and you guys can connect with it, right? So the agenda is, what is supply chain? We're going to talk about sourcing. We're going to talk about procurement. We're going to talk about logistics and distribution. We are going to have a hands-on activity at the end, so make sure you're taking notes and paying attention, and then leave some time at the end for questions and answers. So just a reminder, I'm sure we already covered this in housekeeping. This is being recorded. Make sure you ask questions. Don't be shy. Closed mouths don't get fed. Focus on solutions, not the problem. And also be kind to yourself, and also be kind to everyone else. Okay, we're going to start. I told y'all we love GIFs. Y'all gonna get these GIFs today. So I want to start off by having some fun. I want to see, just get a temperature of in the room of what you've been feeling. Like, what was your last month? Which GIF represents what the last 30 days of your life have been like? Is it like, what the hell? Are you just like, kumbaya, everything is all right in the world? Are you at the point now you're like, you know what? I'm getting 8 to 5 because this is not it. Okay, I don't know why I signed up for it. I'm not doing it. Or are you more so like, sis, why are you even asking this question? I don't I don't know how to answer this. Or are you really in a good place? Like, you're in a happy place and you're just like, everything is going well. Put in the chat. So let me make sure I can see the chat. I want to see. Pulling my hair out. What the hell? 8 to 5. Yup. So fun. Okay. Yeah. I like that last one, the 3, like the eyes open. I'm in an okay place. That's great, Chef Vicky. I love that. Just love that. So just to so you guys can understand like how everyone is feeling, being a business owner, I mean, there's so many elements of it. There's a mental fortitude that you have to make it through, the journey, right? And so I just want to understand how you guys are feeling at this point. So thank you for sharing that with us. Want to start off by there's going to be some terms that you're going to hear, and let me make sure you guys can still see the screen, right? Okay, perfect. There's gonna be some terms that you're gonna hear me. This is like the boring part. We're gonna get out the way fast, and so we can move on to the fun stuff. But you're gonna hear me say terms like purchase order. You're gonna hear margin. You're gonna hear SKU, which means stock keeping unit. You're gonna hear the word 3PL, EDI, wholesale pricing, MSRP, right? So all those terms lead to understanding. You have to have a knowledge of the environment that you're going into, understand like how to talk to the different manufacturers, the distributors, and things of that nature. So purchase order is just that, right? Like you issuing a PO to actually buy the goods, to procure the goods that you want for your business. Margin, I'm sure you guys understand that. I'm not going to go into it. SKU, again, that's just how we identify the actual product. 3PL, definitely going to go into that, because if right now, maybe a lot of you guys, and drop in the chat, let me know now, are you doing your own fulfillment, or did you outsource that to a trusted partner? If you have, let me just know where you're at in the chat. So 3PL means third party logistics, and that means you're working with a partner to do your fulfillment, right? As you think about the long or the big picture, if you want to work with like a Target won't work with you unless you have a 3PL, right? You have to have some sort of official sophisticated system in place, or Macy's or JCPenney's, right? So those are all the things that you have to consider. EDI is how you actually talk to big box retail. So there's different languages you're going to hear, such as an A50, which means your purchase order. You're going to hear the term A60, which is a change order, things of that nature, right? So it basically technology used to talk between you and the retail partner. And then the pricing, I won't go over that because I'm sure you guys understand what it means to wholesale and manufacture pricing. I see a lot of you guys doing your own fulfillment, so that's great. I'm sure you guys are definitely pulling your hair out, being that that's the way you're currently fulfilling. Distribution, you're gonna hear that term a lot. Again, that just means how do you are you doing direct to consumer? Are you doing a B2B? Like, how do you actually make sure your product gets to the consumers out in the world, right? You're gonna hear the term also downstream and upstream, and that just basically means information, technologies, monies, products, right? Downstream, it usually points to the consumer, so towards people like you and I buying the product. Upstream goes back to the raw material, your origin point, right? The procedures, of course, that you need to, producers, you need to understand like what it means to actually, who are the actors in your supply chain. That's super, super important to understand. And we're going to go into that into a little bit more depth. MOQ, I'm sure you've heard that term as well, maybe. It's the minimum order quantity. And that basically means you may have in your mind, you want to purchase only, I don't know, it's called just in time or small spot buy, right? But you, like the manufacturer may have a requirement to buy like 300,000 pieces when you first come and you start a product. So knowing those things in advance will help you make sure your supply chain is efficient. Lead time, that just means how long you wait for the product. And then cost pricing, again, we're gonna go over some pricing models because I want you to actually get some direct hands-on experience with that. If you guys have any questions throughout, just make sure you drop it in the chat. We can attack those at the end of the session. So how it works today is, I know this picture is like, okay, there's a lot of moving parts. Again, supply chain is all about how do you manage all of the moving parts that go into making a product, right? So today, if you have a direct to consumer route, I go on the website, I click and order, right? Well, first of all, you have to make the product available for me to order, right? I go on your website and then all the magic happens, right? Someone said they're fulfilling it by a lot of you guys are fulfilling your orders by yourself. So you understand that you have to package it. You know, what is the consumer experience that you want from the packaging, right? Are you putting a secondary sales funnel in there to make sure that they're not only coming back just for that? Are they going to come back just from the initial purchase? So those are the things to consider. When you're working with big box retail, that's a whole other ballpark, right? Same concept. Only thing is that you're working with a bigger retailer, so like a Target. Today we do our partners that we currently manage. Our Target, we work with HSN, we work with Urban Outfitters, JCPenney. So we have quite a few folks that we work with in big box. So again, it's all about if Target sends orders, for example, every Sunday, right? Every Sunday you're going to get a purchase order from Target. Target will send that order. Your 3PL will then grab that 850, again, purchase order, to make sure that they can fulfill it. You have a week to fulfill the order. It happens very fast, right? So Target does not care if your supplier or your manufacturer is late. If they send in a PO for 1,500 pieces and it needs to be delivered at the end of the week, it needs to be there. So how do we make sure that all of those things are mapped out correctly to get to Target or to myself, like the consumer? I want to source all of it. Okay, I'm starting to see some of your comments. All right, so then that kind of leads to kind of what I've been leading up to, right? What is supply chain? Supply chain, this is a formal definition, but really it's just all of the things that happen to make sure it goes from an idea in your head to an actual tangible products, right? It's not a singular thing, it's a multiple steps, right? Like I said, downstream, upstream, a lot of things are happening. You have goods moving, you have money moving, you have technology integrated. So all of those activities, you have to make sure you keep it together to make sure that it manages, that you actually get the product to wherever you want to get it to. That's really what supply chain is all about. And let me know, I wish we could coin a different term for it. I do want to know before, did you know the term supply chain prior to 2020? Can you drop that in the chat? Or did you only found out about the term supply chain through the toilet paper incident or shortage of food and sanitizer? Okay, good. Did not. Okay, we had someone that did not. Good. Awesome. Okay, just checking because I know a lot of people just found out. An exercise. So I want to make sure you guys, as you guys think through your just getting retail ready, what is the number? What is the percentage of total retail sales? So for brick and mortar accounts for what percentage of total retail sales? Can you guys guess that? Put in the chat what you think that number is. Someone said 40, 40, 40, 15, 60. Okay. It's actually 90%. Close, close. It's actually 90%. So that tells us, and you want to, when you're doing your research, you want to look at things like such as the Nielsen data and et cetera. Yeah, 90%. People are wanting to go in store and actually experience the product. So brick and mortar is not dead, right? When you're thinking of your concept of like, how do I get retail ready or what should my distribution channels be? You want to, usually the split is 60 to 40, right? So 60% of it is going to be in-store experience and the other 40% will be direct to consumer, right? Because you still want to have autonomy, you still want to have ownership. So that's super, super important. So these are just the numbers. You can pull this from the Nielsen data. So you can start looking at what you, especially as you do your user persona, like what are your consumers or target demographics doing, right? Like where do they shop at? Where do they, what is their salary? All of those things that go into putting together user capacity. Now it's like, okay, where do I get started, right? Like, what do I do, right? Sourcing is literally the activity of figuring out, okay, who is going to be my trusted partner to go on this journey with me, right? It's a lot of different activities of making sure, again, taking raw material, right, into making it a tangible product, right? It could be if you're doing juice, or actually, let me talk about maybe if you're doing deodorant, you're going to talk about like different dry and wet ingredients to come together to make that, right? Or juice, same concept. Detergents, beauty, any sort of beauty, personal. I think there was some beauty and personal and food and beverage companies on the call today. So you want to start figuring out again, what does it take to actually, who am I going to go to get the goods to make the products, right? And so that is going to be super important for you to figure out what your total landing cost is going to be in order for you to figure out what you're going to sell, like what you should sell to the front-facing public. So why sourcing is important, again, is to reduce the cost of goods. You want to have better quality, right? Increase your revenues, right? Because some people, we've had folks come to us and they have this amazing idea, but they have not done a bill of material. They have not done any sort of sourcing. And then they're just like, okay, we're going to sell it for $40. And I was like, okay, well, what if it costs you $20 to make, right? Like, is that, you know what I mean? Like, these are the things that we want to have. Like, we want to understand like what's driving our costs. So sourcing is super important. And that's the first step to creating any product, is sourcing. With sourcing, though, comes up something called a bill of material. Drop in the chat if you've heard of bill of material. It's also referred to as a BOM. BOM, not the other. Okay, y'all taking the class too? I love it. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, Nicole said no. It's okay to be vulnerable. Not knowing how you manage your success is how you manage the stuff you don't know, right? And you have to be okay with admitting that you don't know, right? If you go into every room and you say, oh, I know everything, what is there to teach you, right? So don't be afraid to say that you don't know. Bill of material. So, okay, I see some no's and some yeses. So bill of material basically is, just think of it, it's your recipe, right? It's your sauce and how you make the product, right? It's going to be a complete list of ingredients of how to build the finished good, right? It's going to be built. You also include in that bill of material any components, any packaging. So it's not just the actual, like, let's say again, for the deodorant purposes, you're not just going to include like dry ingredients. You're going to also include the components and the packaging to get to the total landing cost. And there's different types of bill of materials. There's a single level bill of material. There's a multi-level bill of material. It really just depends on what product you're building. For today's topic, we're just going to focus on single level. It's a lot simpler before we dive into multi-level bill of material. And I apologize if you haven't had lunch, because I use food analogies. So what this all means is, okay, so you have your product, right? And if you see this burger, as a consumer, when we get the burger, we're enjoying it, right? But as a business owner, you need to be thinking about it in different layers, right? So it's not just a burger. It's literally the buns, right? It's tomato, the lettuce, the actual meat or meatless meat now in today's day and age, right? If you have the sauce, the onions, right? All of those things you need to call out on your bill of material to get to your total landing cost, right? What does this actually get packaged in, right? So this is what you need to think of when you're thinking of a bill of material. Most people just think, okay, I'm thinking of this one thing, but you need to call every single thing out. Like, you need to basically break it out and put a list together to actually start calling out, okay, how many of this piece needs to go into it to make the finished good, right? And that's how you're going to figure out what your total landing cost is, to start figuring out what your retail price should be. Because the consumer, the way that they think of, when we say SKUs, this is how the consumer thinks of it, right? It's the product, the packaging, the accessory, and then equals the actual SKU, right? So you actually have the burger, then whatever the packaging is in, right? For this particular product, it came in a box, so then I have to consider the box, right? Not even just that, who actually direct prints on this product, right? Even things of that nature, right? All of these things, some of this can be bought separately, some of it is bought together. That's why the packaging is so important, to break it out and making sure you look at it correctly. any sort of accessories, if you have like a secondary sales funnel in your packaging or something for them to like a keepsake, you want to include that in there as well. That will help you get an overview again. Total landing costs will become your best friend. Your bill of material, you're going to live and die by this actual, it's like your North Star, basically. If you don't have one, I highly recommend you get one for every product that you are creating, because without knowing what you're, basically what it takes to actually build a product, when you go talk to your trusted partners, you're going to be very, very confused on what to ask for. I'm going to stop here. Chef Vicky says, it's very important. A burger is never just a burger. Hello. And recipes have to be standardized so you can ensure the product is the same every time. Also, the type of ingredients changes the recipe. So sourcing raw materials is very, very important. Thank you. I appreciate you seconding that, right? If you think about, as a consumer lately, when I work in supply chain too, so it's not fair, but when I go to different restaurants now, I can tell that their bill of material has changed. The food doesn't taste the same anymore, right? Or they no longer offer the kale. They're offering like, I don't know what version of kale it is, but maybe it's like a version 1 and not the version 3, but I'm still paying $20 for this salad. So things like that, you have to keep in mind that it's not, like she said, a burger is never just a burger. As a consumer, if I'm paying top dollar still, I still want to make sure that I'm getting quality items. So you got to know what you're sourcing, and then you got to be able to speak to your manufacturer. So I'm honing this in because, again, you will live or die by this product. Not product, but list. So again, why is it important? All the things mentioned here, but the number one thing I want to call out is cash flow. Cash is king. You all know this. You're in business, right? And if you don't have cash, then eventually your business will die. And the goal is not to die. So we want to make sure that we are having intelligent conversations. We are aware of what's going on in our business to be able to talk to have our trusted manufacturers or trusted partners be able to give us a product that we actually can put out in the market and stand behind. Any questions thus far? You can put them in the chat. So if you're wondering what an example looks like, I love examples. This is one particular example. So this is for a skateboard. Excuse me. Again, very detailed. And this is like a simplified version. There was a more complicated one, but I was like, okay, we're going to start off baby steps here. So this is basically, okay, you're going to have a part number. You're going to have the quantity. You can include the image. I think as you create your SOPs, it is important to include images. So as you pass it on to whoever's on your operations team, they can understand exactly what they're supposed to be buying. You see the vendor on here, the manufacturer. If you've narrowed it down to like, okay, we have the strategic partner, we're always going to go here. You can add that as well. The cost, super, super important. And also the unit of measure is missing on here, which is also super, super important because it depends on, again, if you're like in food, it could be by pounds versus each. So it just depends on what you're creating, but always start here. What am I creating? Call it out. And even if you have something, you don't have the full picture, you have an idea, it'll be more helpful for when you go speak to a manufacturer or distributor. Which leads me to the next point. Finding a manufacturer, super, super important. At the bottom, I put some resources for you guys to reach out. We, of course, shameless plug, we can help helping you find a manufacturer for your products. So again, when you have the bill of material, your next step, okay, you define what you want. You want to find a manufacturer. A lot of research goes into that. You can go to our website. There's Petra, there's thomasnet.com. If you're into fashion, you're looking to make garment, Maker's Row is an amazing source. Import Yeti is another one as well. You can actually, so let's say you have a direct competitor that you really inspired to, you can actually look at what they've been importing and who they import all their goods from and who their suppliers are, and just look at them that way. Google will never fail you. Google, but make sure when you go on Google, not just on page 1, I always go to like page 7. What's on page 15, right? Those pages, right? For the people that maybe don't index on the front end, those are the suppliers I want to talk to as well. Peer-to-peer, make sure you're talking to, so Petra, by the way, is petra.com. All of these are .com, except for ours, it's .co. And we can include some sort of like information on the follow-up. But peer-to-peer is super, super important. Yeah, Importiati is amazing. Gives you all the details. Peer-to-peer is super, super important. So if you know someone that's in the same line of work as you, don't be afraid to say, hey, like, where are you, like, who are your trusted partners? Have the conversation. Don't be afraid to share. We're sometimes afraid to share, but guess what? The big boys or big women of the world, right? They're all sharing information, right? They go to dinner with each other, they collaborate. And so I think the one thing that COVID did was help us realize that we can become collaborative and we don't have to actually, like, be so private about what it is that we're doing. Maybe a silly question. I'm gonna stop in because it's a small group, but we'll stop and ask questions. I mean, take some of the questions. Do you have a sample spreadsheet that you can help us organize sourcing suppliers so we can have the research in one place? This is Chef Vicky. I created one with basic information. Like, yes, we do. You can reach out to us after hello at Silk Roads. I'll put our email in the. And we'll be more than happy to help. So it starts off, okay, manufacturer, you're gonna spend a lot of time here. You gotta sit with the stuff that don't feel, that is like, I know when you're in creative mode, especially you're creating stuff, it's like, ooh, all the things are possible, right? But this is what's gonna help you ground you, like, okay, what's actually practical, right? And so it's gonna feel like you wanna go outside and play, but you gotta sit down and like, that's literally what's happening right now. Everyone's outside to play, but we're here, right? We're focused, we're making sure we're educating ourselves. And so this part is equally as important as the creation process. So make sure you research and find a good supplier. You want to reach out, like I said, those resources that I gave you, communicate your designs via the bill of material that you created, order samples. I always highly suggest you order some sort of samples to understand what it is that you're going to, like prototyping what you're putting out into the world. Negotiate. I cannot stress this enough. I don't care if it's just $1, 5 cents. Okay, of course, I would get the background. Sorry about that, y'all. Working from home life. I'm gonna go on mute real quick. The condition that triggered the fire alarm system has now been brought under control.
The perks of living in an apartment.
Yeah.
You can always move to Broward. We're here.
Negotiate. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. Negotiate. I don't care if it's just $1, 5 cents, 10 cents. Every cent counts, especially being a micro business. You just want to also start flexing that muscle, getting used to speaking up and saying, hey, never take the first offer is what if you get nothing else, never take the first offer, be prepared, right? And you'll be surprised. They expect that most people won't come to them and say anything. So a lot of our clients, when we save, we try to save at least 10% of whatever we're buying. So they're like, wait, what? You can do that? I'm like, yeah, you can do that. So make sure you are requesting price breaks, just depending on how you're going to buy certain items. And then you actually want to place your order, right? And that's going to lead us to procurement. But before we go into that, I want to kind of just deep dive into research, the research part of finding a manufacturer. When you're looking for a manufacturer, it's super, super important to categorize them into 2 different buckets. Either they're strategic or they're tactical, right? So you can come up with a strategy and say, okay, 70% of my goods from my bill of material, I'm going to get local. The other 20% is going to be global. But of that 70%, right, who's going to be my strategic source, right? And it could be 2 to 3. What happens in most micro businesses is that we sole source, right? And meaning that we only have one person. We find that one person and we're just going to ride it out. But just like you have a supply chain, that person that you're depending on also has a supply chain, right? And how do you make sure that they're doing the right thing so your business is not dependent on it? You never want to be in a situation where you're sole source and one supplier is driving 60, 70% of your revenue, right? Because when something like a pandemic hits, what happens? Now you got to go through this whole exercise of researching, finding a new person to actually develop the product. Is it going to change the customer experience, right? All these things, right? And we can an example of this would be, and not to say that Honey Pot did this, but Honey Pot, I don't know if you guys heard, is a Black-owned brand. They make feminine hygiene products, and they're going to be part of the exercise later down. So I'm giving you all like a little tidbit. But they make hygiene products, and they changed their formulation, right? They were not sole source. Okay, and that's a perfect example. They weren't even sole source, but they had different suppliers. Things just, their raw ingredients, because of from their bill of material, is just they have some tough ingredients to actually source. They changed the formulation because some of the suppliers were not dependent. I think one supplier couldn't even deliver. So they were in a situation where they had to change, right? And so now it causes uproar. Consumers are upset because, hey, they changed it. So consumers are paying attention. All that to say, consumers are paying attention. We think that they're not, but they are paying attention. And so that's why it's so important that you always want to go into the conversation having more than one supplier. So strategic, you want to at least have 2 to 3. Tactical, I mean, don't go crazy on it, but those you can have, you can have a larger pool from, right? You can have spot buys. So strategic, I'm thinking, let me kind of put some context around that. Strategic means you're going to place longer term orders, right? You've done a forecast. You know that, okay, these 5 staple ingredients, we're going to definitely buy from you. Our forecast, it says, hey, we're going to purchase, I don't know how many you guys buy, but let's say you start off with between the 10 to 50,000 range units, right? We're going to buy these 50,000 units every year from you. Can you lock me into maybe a long-term agreement? Probably wouldn't suggest that given the market today, but these are the kind of strategies that you want to be thinking about when you think of strategic supplier. They should be basically, they're going to be like your husband and wife, right? They're going to be all up in your business, walking with you through new product development. You're going to send them your new product innovations. Like they have a trusted network that you can say, hey, I have this idea. I want to, my next product, I want to do this. Oh, we got the people for you, right? We can do that. Here's what you need to do. And as you start to build that relationship, maybe if they had an MOQ, now you don't have an MOQ, right? Or they have a lower price point, they can, massage some things because they know that you're a trusted partner, just like you trust them. Tactical is just that. It's spot buying. There's really no commitment. It's not on a contract. You're just trying to get some things as quickly as possible. I would say an example of this for retail would be your packaging. A lot of people use Uline. So Uline would be considered a tactical supplier, right? Because you could use Uline today. You could use the box refinery tomorrow. I mean, there's so many different things that you can use for corrugated boxes, right? So those are usually tactical or transactional suppliers. Any questions? Make sure I can see the chat. Perfect. Oh, we'll move it over here. Okay. So that, and again, you're probably like, oh my gosh, it's just, I'm telling you, it's so important to understand the difference between the two, because yes, Uline is the bomb. And yes, you can negotiate with Uline. You send them, there's a customer. Has anyone ever negotiated with Uline? I'm curious. Just drop in the chat if you have. Nope. No, never, but now I will. Didn't know I could. Yes, you can. Okay, so I'll give you guys, yes, okay, business credit. Love it. Congratulations. Didn't know it was an option. It is an option. It's never not an option. Remember that you're there, so your cash is their revenue stream, right? They are too expensive. So corrugated boxes is different, and we won't go off into that rabbit hole, but and there's actually another price increase scheduled for this year for corrugated boxes. The paper, if you look at things like, and this is again why bill of material is so important. If you look at the paper and pulp index, that's part of the reason why the price points are going so high, right? It's a very intense time right now to be in the marketplace. But Uline, so what you do is you go online, you see the price, you want to figure out how much you want to buy. You email customer service, I believe it's customer service at uline.com. Or there's a quotes at uline.com. I can put it in the chat afterwards. But you basically say, hey, this is my price that I want to pay. And they'll come back and they'll say, hey, I can't meet it, but I can give you this. And if they can't give you the price, look at the shipping, because the shipping is usually expensive. Say, hey, the shipping is really expensive for this. What can you do? They're going to say, oh, it's kind of heavy, but we can give you maybe 15 to 25%. That's it. Or you can, I've negotiated supplies received term as well as discount price, but I never knew I could do that. Yes, you can definitely do that with Uline. Another thing too, if you want with, I'm using specifically Uline, you can use your own freight. That's something most small businesses don't do. Set up your own logistics and distribution, right, route, like get your own UPS account number, your own FedEx, your own USPS, and then basically say, hey, bill me third party. That's an option as well, right? And then you start building that muscle to kind of basically build to get business credit. So that's something you want to consider as well. But you can negotiate with anyone. You can at least try. The worst thing you can hear is no, and really no is a beautiful thing. No, it's just a conversation starter. It means not this way, but let's figure out a way how. So always keep that in mind. But yes, negotiate with Uline and let me know how that goes. So different things to source. So now your bill of material again, you vetted out trusted partners. This is your strategic, this is your tactical. Now you want to put out there's 3 forms of like basically sourcing or a way to procure the goods, right? You either have an RFQ, which is the most usual method that most people use, request for quote. Request for proposal is usually more sophisticated. Request for information is another sophisticated form. But again, most people use an RFQ. You send one out saying, hey, I'm looking to purchase this. I would suggest when you first start off, maybe doing an RFI with the manufacturer because you want to understand what their capabilities are against what you have on your bill of material. When you go to them, you're going to present, you have like a brand deck. This is what you're doing. This is, these are the people you're going to impact. Put some of their information on there, like do your homework, show that you vetted them out as well. I see that you're omni-channel. I'm also an omni-channel brand. Make sure you integrate them into part of your plan so they can start trusting you to give you the best terms. Yeah, you can negotiate the shipping though. They'll take it off the shipping. They know the shipping is expensive. They'll tell you, but I always get discounts from Uline, at least 25%. And then as you start building, again, you get more volume, they have more concessions. We're at the point now where we actually have a rep come into the office. That's another tip. As you start building a business, we have the rep actually come into the office and meet with us and have a supplier scorecard. So now we're evaluating Uline. So it's not just a one-way relationship where you're just pulling money from us, but we're also saying, hey, you know what? Let's see how you're doing. This is a report card for how we're doing your businesses with us. Do we want to continue? And based on that, we've been able to say, hey, things are getting a little too expensive. Your competitors are looking, a little bit better than you are. They'll come and say, hey, for this product, like I think the last one we got, there was a product line we received 30% across the board, all across the board, no matter when we order for the next year, because we went to them and said, hey, you're getting expensive and we can't afford to keep up with y'all. So conversations, negotiation. When you're talking to the manufacturer, make sure these are some of the questions that I just threw together just to help you figure out, okay, what can you ask? What should you be asking? Again, we talked about MOQ, what payment terms, service level agreements. You want to make sure you understand exactly how they service their existing clientele. I would even suggest, hey, who do you guys currently service? Can I speak to them? Like setting up a call to speak to them if someone is in your network to figure out, okay, is it really the experience that they tell you it is? What happens when things go wrong? I think a lot of people don't talk about that. In the very beginning, you need to question that at the very beginning. Hey, when everything's great, that's awesome. But what happens when things go wrong? What happens when the product is defective? What happens if you don't deliver on time? What are the things? Can we put some conditional terms in there? Like if you miss the mark, that you have to pay me? Those are some of the things that you need to have behind the conversation. Another thing when you're talking and negotiating up front, you want to make sure that you review terms and conditions at the beginning. Everybody goes in and everyone's like price focused, right? Price, lead time. No, show me the T's and C's. I want to see the pricing and all the other stuff, but I want to see the fine line. It's almost like you see the commercials with the cars, right? And at the very end, like I think when the Tesla came out, actually, when they introduced the Model 3, it was like, oh, only $25,000. And then you read the fine print, and it was like $75,000. I'm like, wait a minute. Who is this car for? This is not for millennials. This is not for millennials. First of all, they won't even hire us out of school because we don't have no experience. So yeah, those are super important. That's why when we negotiate, we say, hey, let's see your SLA, let's see your terms and conditions. We want to see all that up front. And usually they're stunned by that because they're like, by the time you agree on the price, they think you're just going to sign. No, let's, again, protecting your intellectual property, one, right? Do they have liability insurance for 3PL? You're about to store all your goods in there. Are their paperwork in order? Again, you have a supply chain, they have a supply chain. You need to vet both of those things out. Okay, so you have a manufacturer, now what? I want to make sure, because I know we're coming up on time, you procure, right? That's again, procure is just a fancy word for purchasing, how you buy stuff. That's super important. So when you do procurement, you want to make sure you're buying smart. You want to make sure you're forecasting. You want to make sure you have inventory management, right? Procurement, again, just means how do you procure all the goods? So buying smart means that you're buying at the right time, at the right quality, at the right cost. There's like so many rights. There's like 7 rights in supply chain, right? So these are the things that you want to focus on when you're buying. Then you have your forecasting. Are you going to make sure that you have the goods available so you don't have stockouts, right? It could be a strategy at the beginning to maybe create scarcity and get people into the door. But after a while, that gets old. People are like, okay, I'm over it. The goods need to be available, right? And so how do you make sure you actually do not have a stock out situation? Inventory management is just that. How do you manage your inventory to make sure you can actually sell, right? Revenue, again, cash is king. So some examples of that and things that we do here is at Silk Roads is make sure we give you proper forecasting and also how do we manage your inventory. So some examples is like, okay, we can look at different products and know, okay, is this product something we should continue to invest in? If it hasn't been if it hasn't been selling, let's get rid of it. What is our current inventory level? You know, how many, if we get an order from maybe Macy's, right? And it's not due till September, can we really afford to take on that PO, right? What is it going to take to actually take on that PO? Those are the conversations you want to have at the beginning of right when Macy's approach you, not you trying to figure out at the last minute, can I actually meet this order? Because it's not, again, when you have direct to consumer, wholesale, you have a lot of distribution channels you have to manage. So you want to make sure you understand exactly what your inventory and forecasting levels do. For every product that you have, you should understand what your reorder point is, right? Reordering just means, okay, what level do I need to be at to actually reorder that product? It could be 1,000, it could be 500, and that's usually based off of your past sales by I can give the formula at the end as well. But that's something, these are just in real life examples of what it looks like to actually manage ongoing products. And then logistics and distribution is just, again, how do we make sure that all of our goods, right, get to where they're supposed to get to? They're usually divided into two sectors or two lanes, sort of to speak. You have your inbound and then you have your outbound, right? So inbound is, again, the customer actually placing the order, the payment is processed, the retailer receives the order, like you, right? So you guys were saying that you fulfill your own orders. You receive the order via your Shopify, your WooCommerce, whatever the case may be. You pick, pack, and ship the order, make sure it gets to the carrier, and then we enjoy the product, right? That's inbound, right? Outbound is more so directed toward wholesale, and that is like a Target. So, right, again, what I said earlier, Target sends in POs normally on Sundays. Once Target sends that PO in via EDI, right? And EDI, you're either going to use two suppliers. It's called either True Commerce or SPS is the ones that really dominate the market today. And then you basically pull that order. You have to have a 3PO pull that order for you, your 850. They're going to look at the orders, right? And make sure that the order can be fulfilled. But you've been managing your inventory and your forecast, so you know it can be fulfilled. That's not an issue. The retailer basically tells you what stores it needs to be shipped to, right? If you get an order, Target is usually shipping it to a DC and then branches out to the different stores, right? So it could vary. If you're in 300 stores, I think there's like 25 DCs at this point that service like the plethora of stores that they have throughout the United States. So again, outbound is more so wholesale focus, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get, because I want y'all to really get to this activity. So fun. Okay, the different types of retail supply chains, right? And I'm sure you guys have dropped in the chat if you've heard these different names: single, multi-channel, omni-channel. I'm sure y'all have heard of it. Or if you guys haven't heard of it, you guys have definitely said, okay, we've heard of it. Okay, Natasha has not. Okay, cool. So single channel basically means just that, direct to consumer. I'm going on our website and I'm transacting with you. Multi-channel, on the other hand, can be either online or offline, right? Either your voice, you have email, you have phone, actually email, so chat, any sort of print service, if like you're getting those EDMs that you usually get from the USPS from your doctor's office or things like that, right? They're basically, multi-channel is not integrated, right? Versus omni-channel, it's everywhere, it's integrated everywhere. That's how you could be talking about something and you feel like your phone is listening to you because you see it on, you go on the website and you see it on IG, then you see it on Facebook, then you see it now, it's like getting so sophisticated that it's, on the billboards, walking down the street. So that's what it means to be omni-channel. Like, right, you're always on, always present. You're on all the channels and the consumer can find you anywhere. It's easy for them to transact with you, right? So these are the different types of retail channels, and you need to consider, where do we want to be at? Because each channel has different requirements and each channel will affect your supply chain differently. These are just some stats that I put in here. Again, very big. We love data over here. Data will become is your best friend to understanding what your consumers are doing. Nielsen is a very big one that we recommend. There's some other retail. So the Power of the Black Dollar, what we spend the most money on, beauty, right? Then we go next, we go look at women's fragrance, feminine hygiene, men's toiletries, personal soap. When you're creating products, this is exactly where you want to look at to understand what your consumer is doing. Okay. And I see you can also access full search report. Yep, there's another one, I believe it's called, let me put it in the chat. This is actually a really good one too. I want to say that's what it's called. It might be a C in there. If you guys can check for me.
Can I just add that like Statistica, you'll find it online, but it's very general. But through the library, you'll get all the details. So that's why it's good to have your local membership. You just sign in online and go through their portal.
Exactly. There you go. I believe that they even had at one point, there was a rep that like offered us a free trial for like a year or something like that. Again, negotiations. I think they were trying to get people, that was during the pandemic. So just something to consider later down the line. But thank you for adding that. It's beautiful. That's exactly where I was going. Okay, so third-party logistics, super, super important to make sure you get familiar with as you start thinking about, okay, where is my product going to live? Not only on your website. If you're going to work with someone like Target, you need a 3PL, right? You need a third-party logistics. Doing your own fulfillment is just not going to cut it, and nor should you want it to, right? At some point, you want some freedom. That's the reason why you created this idea, right? And so you don't want to be doing like in the trenches that much, right? And touching and all the picking and packing. So, right, 3PL just means you're outsourcing a partner that will take ownership of the order fulfillment process. Some examples are ShipBob, there's ShipMonk, they're local to South Florida. Smart warehousing. I mean, there's so many 3PLs now. It just really depends on who you want to partner with. And then how to vet out a 3PL. It's a lot of homework. Got to do your homework. You got to make sure, you're ready for 3PL. Do you have the volume? What does your packaging time look like? Best practice is usually under 40 seconds, right? If they have to, a minute and 40, you're going to be paying some money for a pick pack. Your packaging profile, are you under a pound, right? So in USPS world, anything under a pound is like a sweet spot, right? Because it's not that heavy. It just, especially as it travels, right? The cost is easy to manage. Your cost structure, where are you shipping to? Do you have EDI capability, technology integrations? What is your Shopify? Like, what are all the plugins that you're using to actually make sure that it can still connect with whoever you work with, right? So these are some of the things that you want to manage. And I kept it very high level, but it's a lot of details that go into getting a 3PL and actually trusting someone to handle, right, your baby and with care and grace and the same thing that you would do for if you were doing fulfillment. So that's where we're at. That's pretty much sourcing, procurement, logistics, and distribution. I want to actually go into an activity now. And I did split y'all up into, and I don't know if we can do this breakout rooms, but split y'all up into 5 groups. So what I'm going to want you, I assigned different companies to each of the groups. What I want you to do is create a bill of material. And then I want you to find 2 to 3 suppliers. And at the end, you're going to just do a quick presentation saying, hey, our total landing cost, we assume that it's this. I know it's not your brand, so of course you're not going to know for sure, but we're assuming that it's this. These are the suppliers that we're going to do strategic supplier with these 2, and just give me 2 to 3 suppliers, and one maybe could be tactical, but at least one's a strategic supplier.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So
Good.
this is great information. I actually just learned about Nielsen this weekend, so I was trying to explore it, and I discovered how many Hispanics in Miami purchases my type of product. But I was trying to see if I could dig deeper to know, for instance, how many Cubans, like if I can dig deeper to know the specific type of demographic, like even more, because I already have my buyer personas, but it would be great to know, like, if it's it will be great to know as deep as that. Like if more Cubans purchase my product, or you know, more Caribbean people, or like just as an example.
Hmm.
And so I was wondering if it has that ability.
That's a really good question. So, before I start, are you trying to, you're just trying to figure out, okay, you're super, well, first, you're super serving one set of the community, it sounds like, right? You're intentionally going into just that market. Is that accurate?
Um, well, no, I'm not just going into that market, but
Uh-uh.
that's the biggest cross section of people that purchase my product currently, that I know of from um, like face to face type, brick and mortar face to face type. I don't know for online, but I know for offline, the
What,
biggest amount, percentage of people demographics that purchase my product. So I just wanted to see if I can dig deeper.
yes, the answer is yes. What's your product? While you're in the breakout room, I'll just do a quick.
So I'm in the beauty industry. I have bath and beauty products, all natural, handmade.
Okay. Oh, natural. So
Nirva, I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready. I'll do some research and come and I'll circle back on. But the answer is yes. You can find out that
Okay.
information.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That won't be me.
Yeah. I was gonna say we go first because we don't have an answer for you. So
What group are you?
like
Group 2.
group 2, we were hyper skin.
Okay.
So like some of the issues were, I don't know, like they're not showing the full ingredients of lists for us to source. So like we tried to focus on finding vitamin C, which we did. But then it's like that's 15%. So like how like trying to figure out the cost felt really complicated. I don't know anything about their packaging. So like it was, I'll be honest, I could not go anywhere with
Okay.
this.
How do you so I'm gonna challenge you a bit. When you go on hyperskin.com, right? So maybe clarity too, just because some these folks have a lot, this particular one only have, I think only she has like one or two. When you go down on her page, it actually has a full ingredients list listed on there. So you just click on that.
Oh, okay. I did not see that link. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm trying to figure out, and who was part of your group? It was you?
So it was Chef Vicky, Denise, and Rebecca.
Yeah.
Okay. Did y'all have any talks about like supplier at least for vitamin C?
Yeah, we looked bulk at apothecary and then also bulk supplements. We also spent some time trying to figure out if like the vitamin C that you take as like a supplement by mouth is the same vitamin C that would be used in skincare, if there's like some different standard. So like that was a question that we needed to figure out since vitamin C was the biggest ingredient on the list. But those were the two companies that Chef Vicky found actually.
Nice. Is Bulk Apothecary a manufacturer or distributor?
I don't even think we looked that far.
Okay. What would you say the lesson was learned from, as far as like if you should look at it and attribute it to your own sourcing strategies? And I think Chef Vicky was trying to say something.
Nothing happens overnight. You have to be aware. You cannot bamboozle. You cannot pretend. You cannot just jump right in and think you're going to make it overnight.
Okay.
And hence the reason why I had asked for the list, because like, for example, I stayed up all night last night. I've had done that research over a year or two ago, and I'm like, oh, I got this. I've been doing this. I'm a bit of a researcher. Last night I felt completely back to square one. Started doubting everything I had. I already had my containers, and now I'm seeing a bunch of stuff. I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have nothing. And I had to calm down, and I'm like, okay, this person does it better. Do I want to go organic? Now, and so I found over 15 different suppliers, But now there's one thing finding the suppliers. There's a second thing, I have to get sample because I can't just make the decision without tasting the product for food.
Mhm.
And so I have to try the same batch with 10 different products to see which one that I'm going to narrow it down to the 3. Because now, for example, there's a shortage of smoked paprika. And one of my spices has smoked paprika in there. And I can't find smoked paprika everywhere. So
And that's to go back to what she said about the quality that's not being fulfilled, like she was talking about earlier with the kale. People not
Right.
using it downscaling their product, and you could tell it by the taste of the quality compared to what it used to be.
For me, if it's not quality, I'm not putting my name on it. That's just probably not my biggest thing. Even when I do dinners, I do anything that I do has to be to a certain standard. So, and if I have to shorten that, I rather 86 it and then scratch it. So, with this exercise, we found 2 companies in a rush. It was 5 minutes, but we did find ascorbic acid, and we found the other one. What was the other one, Rebecca? That was
It was licorice, the licorice root for the
sorry, licorice.
Yeah.
But then we didn't have time to dig in it to figure out or to even compare it to another company.
Okay. I'll give some feedback. I appreciate the vulnerability. I think that's one thing too, especially as business owners, like there's so many options. And so like you have to, how do you basically get grounded again? I think one of those things that we have to do is like, I always urge the people that we work with to bring your consumers in on the journey. So if you have like maybe your trusted 1 to 50, your first 50 clients that have been rocking with you or you're reoccurring, like create an advisory board of some sorts and let them help you source the product, right? They'll tell you what they want, right? And then add those 50 could be the base for the next 100. And right, you're always basically talking to your consumer. So you're not just trying to figure it out, and you can get out your own way and remove that cognitive bias in a way. But we'll kind of go into that. Bulk Apothecary, by the way, is a distributor. So that means your costs will be going up, right? You're not actually buying it from the manufacturer, so you're going to get padded, right? So that's the reason why I was requesting that. But just things to think about when you're sourcing, right? Who are you buying it from? And are they buying it from someone? Because they could be the middleman to the next middleman, and now you paying 3x because you didn't just go straight to S&P, for example. Okay, who's next?
We can go next. We were group 1, which was Honey Pot. And I know you mentioned it during your presentation, so I was excited, but I realized, and we all realized we've never heard of it. So we first had to do research on what it was.
Okay.
And I believe it's the feminine hygiene products, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because there were a few different businesses with that name. So we focused on the pads, and they are mainly 100% organic in their cotton. They do have a list of ingredients, but that's the main ingredient that we wanted to supply. So we found 3 manufacturers. We found globalstandard.org. Actually, before that, Organic Cotton Plus was the first one. I will admit these were all on the first page of Google. So I don't know if they're the best, but they were like the top ones, which weren't ads. So Organic Cotton Plus, globalstandard.org, and then Royal Apparel. And I believe they're the manufacturers. They all seem to have wholesale options and have cotton farms. And at least that's what I gathered from looking at their website.
Okay. Anybody else from the team want to share what they learned during the exercise? I'm going to look up something.
I know
Natasha
was driving and Natasha was at work.
Okay, Natasha Nicole.
Okay.
So I don't know
So
if I can hop off and say something. I don't know.
no problem. So that really good. I think Royal Apparel. So good question, right? Like there's sometimes the website will come across as if it's a manufacturer, right? And then it's really not. So part of finding that out is calling them, sending an email, and just having like, hey, are you manufacturer distributor, right? And usually if they're manufacturer, they're straight to the point. If they're not, they're usually going to give you like a around the world respond saying, oh, but we can provide and we have direct relationships. Okay, no, you're padding the cost, which is fine because I now know I'm going to use you for maybe spot buying versus my strategic buys, right? And so those are things to keep in mind. But good, no, good job. I think too, for the next group, if you want, maybe sometimes too, you can start off with the packaging. Packaging is sometimes pretty straightforward because you know what you want to put it in. You know, if you want it to be a pump, do you want it to be like, so think of those things too, because those are usually easy to find as well, because that's part of sourcing in and all that good stuff. But I won't go down a rabbit hole with that. Who's the next group?
So we
I'll go
have
next. Oh, go ahead.
we have group 3 with Aurelia.
I love
Okay,
it.
yes, that's me. Thank you. So we had Partake Foods. Funny, I was in a cohort with the founder not too long ago, so it was exciting. We chose to do the classic pancake mix, so we figured it had the simplest ingredients. They're an allergy-free baked goods company. You can find their products at Target. Their ingredients are oat flour. They have a series of flours: oat, buckwheat, tapioca, sugar, salt, oat milk powder, potato starch, oat fiber, baking soda, cream of tartar. And then we have the packaging, which are the boxes. For packaging, we decided to find a custom company from Alibaba.com to do our packaging for us. We didn't research it, but we figured that's where we would go to find someone to do our custom made boxes. For the oat products, Phaser Mills, they are an oat manufacturer and they do all types of oat products. For sugar, salt, and baking soda. Oh God.
You okay?
Sorry, hold on.
You're
My
fine.
phone came in, I don't know why. For sugar, salt, and baking soda, we chose to use the local company. It's a wholesale baking supply company in Miami called Medina Baking. And then for potato starch, Atlanta Potato Distributors. We used Import Yeti because we didn't have a lot of time. So I just went on there and started Googling and just like, they had everything from all over. So we figured that would be a good place to start. And then we just use samples. But if any of our bakers want to help us out, you can just let us know where you get your stuff from.
Amazing. That's great work. Great work.
Okay. So the next group we have Jordan, group 4.
Yes. Okay. So we found a couple of websites that the other groups have used. Because of the pandemic, we decided to go, instead of doing direct suppliers, even though it's going to be a little bit more costly, but the idea behind those companies that we chose is more like they're buying in bulk. So they won't necessarily have the same issues we would have as in receiving our containers from overseas. So we are using Uline for cardboards and shipping boxes, Burden Packaging for a one-stop shop because they also customize your logo and you'll get all type of bottles if you want something custom made. And for the raw ingredients, we chose Bulk Apothecary because the promise of the website that we were topicals is organic ingredients, and Bulk Apothecary offers a wide variety of organic raw ingredients. And also we got Wholesale Botanics for the essential oils.
Okay. Good stuff. So I want to challenge what you said a bit about the strategy as to why you went that route, which is great. I love that the way you put it into context. So there's things such as and that's what, so the big guys, right? And women, big guys and women, they count on us using that strategy, right? But there's different things such as, has anyone heard of a GPO, group purchasing organization? Look,
If I had pom-poms, okay, right here for you.
Right. And that starts, so group purchasing organization just means that we are now using group economics, right? We use the power of the group, right? And so if maybe one or two of y'all call and you say, hey, I want to get boxes from Uline, I want to get boxes from Uline, I want to get boxes from Uline, right? You can order it together, right? So basically you're now doing what the bigger brands are doing. right? But you have more control over the cost. And there's different partners out there, such as, I don't know, my eye keeps bugging me, but Omnia Partners is one of them, for example. So I kind of challenge that a bit because you actually have a lot of power just by sitting here in this room and looking to your, well, on Zoom, you're up, down, left, right. But you can actually use the power of the group to have those conversations and just say, hey, I'm going to place an order for this. Do you need this? And you, of course, we need to know that that person is your direct line of business. But I would use that to your advantage to start getting better pricing. Omnia Partners is a great partners of ours. If you guys are interested in making an introduction, we partner with them for group GPO initiatives. We purchase a lot of indirect expenses that way because that's one of the highest, drivers for business as well. But just keep that in mind. Don't ever think that you're not big enough or not ready yet, that you can't start doing some of those buying initiatives that bigger companies do. There's so many different things, and we don't have time today, but even thinking of cooperatives, right? What does it mean to be a cooperative, consumer cooperative, producer cooperatives, things of that nature?
They're supposed to speak. Okay, so we kind of bombed this one. we said what we wanted to look for, but we didn't really look for vendors other than we did Alibaba for the bottles, and then the labels we would do from a local company. The ingredients are all like fresh fruits, turmeric, ginger, and things of that sort. So we were saying that we would get it from the farmer market, the local farmers market.
Okay.
So for me, I didn't do too well with this one. I'm gonna try and work on it for the next time.
I can help you.
No, you did good.
Okay.
Who's speaking?
Martha, here.
Martha. Hi, Martha. Look.
Hi, how are you? Okay, you are doing good. The website is saying the users, they are from local sources. So we need to find local growers. Why? Number one, we don't have to pay, from people from outside. So we can save money on freight. And we can also encourage young people, especially, that we are using natural fruits and in this case, plants from a local grower. So that is a very good point for us for marketing. And number two, the bottles. We discussed that maybe we can buy the bottles in China, but that is not good because I have a lot of clients that they have really bad problems to get the bottles from China. So we can find something here in USA that they are using less plastic. That is good also, and good advertising, and is more, sustainable. And we can avoid, in this case, to print directly the packaging because they are using labels. So they can order the labels from me. And we can use also like a recycled paper and nothing fancy, because at the end of the day, if you have something really expensive, you need to be careful how much is the packaging for your product. And we need to be focused on the product, in this case, the plant-based, I think it was smoothies and juice and what else? I think it was yeah. So we need to be focused more on that and try to find us a supplier, no Uline, because Uline is expensive, no Amazon because it's expensive, and they have a stock limit. So if I find someone that is made in USA, a supplier, that should be there someone, I think. So I think I remember someone here in the USA that is using less plastic, like maybe Sprouts. Sprouts is a good example. They are putting on the packaging that they are using something that can be recycled because they are using less plastic. I think it was made in USA, that packaging, so I need to find out more about it. And also, in this case, they sell directly from the brick and mortar store. I think it's a franchise or something like that. They have different locations. So we need to also to pick the right merchant. That way they can take care, for example, for to shop on the store or pick up on the store. I don't have to be, or also local delivery. I don't have to be worried about that because the local delivery can be with the merchant. In this case, Uber or Clover or any other merchant that they can do the delivery. And it says that nationwide shipping. Also, again, my merchant can take care of that, of this part of the shipping, because, for example, if I put that from Shopify, that UPS or FedEx or any other partner, they can do the delivery, I am covered. So my e-commerce should be take care of that. We have to be more focused to find the right local grower or supplier. The only thing I couldn't resolve with my team is I don't know how many locations they have, because we need to the smoothies you can do it, at the store, but the juices I couldn't find out with my team. How can we make the juices, because we need a number. How many juices do you need?
I love that. So clearly this is not Martha's first rodeo, okay? She went through all the facts. I love it. And I love that you included shipping, right? I think, and I saw, Stacy, we have some solutions for packaging too. I did drop a gem. So Earnest Packaging, it's a smaller, right? It's a privately owned business, family owned business, but they can move some packages. So if you guys want an introduction, please let me know. We have some context there. They are based out of California, but they are amazing to work with in half the price of what Uline offers. So no, thank you everyone for your time. I know we're way past time and you're still on, so I really, really appreciate that. We appreciate that. And hopefully you learned something today. Again, your supply chain, it will make or break you, but I love that you guys are, practicing, and from the exercise, you guys learned something. Or, I mean, you guys already do it today, right? But you understand why it's so important to have, like I said, your sourcing under control, your procurement, logistics, and distribution. Those three things will really play a factor when you think about, okay, how do I go from 0 to 1, then 1 to 100, 100 to 10,000, 10,000 to 50,000, things of that nature. Each scale, right, requires a different version of you, right? And so that's super, super important. I want to just make space really quick for Chef Vicky, which is like all these choices. I didn't even know what to pick. I'm just like everywhere. So I think part of it too is like when you start feeling like that, right, just take a break. It's still going to be there when you come back, right? And that's what I challenge myself to do, because the internet is a lot. It's a lot of information coming really fast. And I try to just get grounded again, right? What problem am I solving? Who am I serving, right? Who am I super serving? And then again, how can I bring them on the journey? I have an idea of what I want to create, but I want to hear from the people that I'm creating for. So create an advisory council. Do not go on the journey alone. Ask so many questions. And again, being successful is all about how you manage what you don't know. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I don't know, teach me, right? Lifelong student, always. So I hope that we can help. This is not a therapy session, I promise.
But I think this whole week has been a therapy session.
They go hand in hand, right? Like there's no such thing as like your personal being removed from your business. It's one and the same, right? It show what you do in your personal will show up in business, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I wish you guys all the best, and we're here to stay in touch. You can contact us via hello@silkrose.co. A lot of the solutions you guys talk about, so we can